Welcome to Living Simply, a guide to mindful living and mindful parenting with your host, Dr. Gina.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Living Simply with Dr. Gina Madrigrano. My name is Ben Barber. Dr. Gina, how are you today?
I'm content. How about you, Ben?
I'm fine. It's good to see you. What are we talking about?
Pursuing meaning over happiness.
I like it. What does it mean?
No pun intended. Happiness, as you know, is an emotion, and people pursue happiness or try to pursue happiness all the time. The thing with happiness, because it's an emotion, it's fleeting. It's no different than anger, joy, frustration. It doesn't last. So what gets people through life is more meaning over happiness, because we'll see it even with people who seem to have it all, who basically say they're not happy and they don't have a purpose or a meaning in life. And meaning, life is, as I've said several times, life is random. It's suffering. There's injustice, malevolence. There's a lot of bad things that happen across the lifespan.
At least a couple, yeah.
Yeah. And we can't predict what or when these things will happen. And what gets us through the difficult moments of life is meaning. When life is hard, what will get you through it and not break you down is, if we use an example, many people say, if it weren't for my kids, I would end it. So their kids give their life meaning. That obviously that's an extreme example, but meaning is what gets us through the difficult times. And what we value is what gives our life meaning. What we notice in the world is what we value, what we pay attention to. So what's important when I work with clients, often at midlife, so they've checked all the boxes. They got the good job, everything, the kids, the house, and we work together at let's redefine what gives meaning to your life, because their life satisfaction is pretty low. So that's where we like to start, to see what brings your life meaning, and we work our way back in defining their values and how this can show up in their lives.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that this reminds me of, like, the question. One of my favorite questions to ask people is, what is your definition of success?
Yeah.
Because so many people define success as a monetary value, or a house, or something in a something tangible, right? Like that I have this much in my bank account, or I have this car, or I have this, or like my kids can go to this school, or even like I can pay for my kids to go to this college. You know what I mean? And like those are all fine markers of success, but none of them lead necessarily to meaning and happiness. And I think it's a very, like, how we look at these things in our lives, how we judge these things in our lives matters so much, because, like you said, meaning is not meaning, happiness is fleeting, and you can get to a state where you are more happy than you are not, and you can get, but like the way you started this show was, I asked you how you were and you said content.
Yeah.
And that is amazing. Being content is sustainable.
Yes.
you know, at least more sustainable. You're not going to, another thing is like, you're not going to be everything all the time.
Yeah.
So like when you're saying that you're pursuing happiness, it's like, I can't wait to get to this like Zen like level of bliss and happiness where everything works out and I never have any more problems and whatever. And like, dude, you're still going to stub your toe, you know,
Yes.
your pet is still going to die. Your loved one is still going to get sick. You're going to, you're going to have a bad day. Things are going to happen. Like happiness is not a destination. It's a means of travel, et cetera, et cetera. Like it's an unrealistic expectation that you think that you're going to get to bliss. And I
Well,
think
and yeah,
yeah,
sorry. And people who chase happiness are really disappointed because of what you're saying. It's not sustainable
right.
because of what life puts on your path. And we saw it, biggest example, the pandemic. How can you be happy when suddenly when it starts, it's chaos? You don't know what's the next thing's going to happen, but you could still be content. And that's how people flipped the script on this. Is it forced people to shift and be content with their lives. Oh, okay, we're all working from home. That's awesome. I get to be with my kids all the day, every day, even if it's hard for them working from home. So what happened is, it, to some degree, it gave their life meaning, and happiness becomes a byproduct of meaning as opposed to a goal you're trying to reach, because it's impossible to sustain because of how life is designed.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Um what is so when someone comes to you and talks about, their happiness and what like and that they're because depression and anxiety are so prevalent now in our society, uh and not that they never were, just
Yeah.
that we didn't necessarily diagnose them, and we didn't necessarily, and it was like, oh, Kevin's kind of weird, like he's he's sad all the time, and he kind of freaks out about that, you know what I mean? And like, sure, we have names for them now, and we have diagnoses, and we have um treatments, and we have understanding, but a lot of times, like when people come to see you, I'm sure they're talking about these things, and you think that the natural like antonym for your ailments, the opposite would be happiness. So that's why it seems like a natural goal, right? So
Yeah.
how do you structure that when people come in and talk to you about it?
Well, when they come, I always ask them, I always tell them, I'm going to start with the end. So I'll say, picture you've been to therapy, everything worked. What do you see? What do you want? They know what they don't want, right? I don't want to be anxious anymore. I don't want to be depressed. And I'm like, okay, no one wants to be depressed. No one wants to be anxious. That's a given for everybody. So what differentiates you is, what do you want? So instead of focusing on, I want to avoid pain, it's the opposite. Then what do you want to pursue in your life that will give your life meaning, so that the pain can subside and you can get better? So focusing on what we want as opposed to what we don't want, to make that little leap. And how do we decide what we want? Is, what would make my life meaningful as opposed to happy? So for some people, they find meaning in their jobs, right? They're of service, their job is gratifying. Some are public servants, they love to serve the public that way. While others, yeah, they're good, they have a job because they have bills to pay, but their meaning comes from their family, their relationships. So it's important to get clarity on again, always the same. What do you value? What do you value that you think would give your life meaning, and getting more clarity around these things and being outside the box? Because some people, for example, I live in Ottawa, so there's a lot of public servants, but they're really dissatisfied with their lives. So I go, what would be your dream? Like, I see some of them, my dream would be, many of them actually, I'd love to be a yoga teacher. But then they're like, how's that going to pay my bills? You know, they make over $100,000, they have benefits. I'm like, well, you don't have to quit your job. Why don't you start teaching yoga part-time? And I use that because I think now I've had like 5 clients, you know, highly educated, great jobs, pays well, and they all want to become yoga teachers. And that means something, because yoga, besides a form of exercise, is a way of life. And when they've been exposed to yoga, it teaches them to be mindful, present, and to slow down, basically. So you can live a practical life, pay your bills. Who likes to pay bills and taxes? You might not find meaning in that thing. But aside from that, so those painful things, what will make it worth it? What will make your life worth paying those bills? If you think having kids, you don't have kids, but you have that little guy. You're like an uncle, a stepdad, a brother. You see it. It's not easy to be a parent. You're constantly worried. It's a lot of work. But most people who have kids, it's the hardest thing they've ever done, yet the most rewarding thing that in their life. And that's what meaning is it's worth the pain and the struggle. And it comes with a lot of pain and struggle. And you're willing to do it anyway. Whereas if you're like, I want to be a parent so I'm happy all the time, well, good luck. You're the first year you don't sleep. You won't be happy. I promise you. But your life will have a lot of meaning. And that's basically what meaning does, is it gets you through those difficult times and the struggles. It keeps your eye on the ball. It gives your life direction. It reminds you why you do what you do. So I always tell my clients who have a hard time sticking to some things, especially anxious ones, I'm like, facing your fear will be hard. It takes courage. It's painful when you have anxiety to make yourself uncomfortable. But remember why you're doing this. My most amazing client in my career, her anxiety was so severe. Ambulances had to be called. It only took 6 sessions. And her why to do the difficult exercises to get her through the anxiety and reduce the anxiety was her why. She was getting married. She didn't want to have a panic attack on her wedding day, and she wanted to get on that plane to go on her honeymoon. That was the big enough motivator to struggle through the pain of the anxiety. So meaning gives us a why. Why do I do what I do? Right? Even you, me, the part of my job that I hate is the paperwork. If I could pay someone to do it, but no one can do my clinical notes. I hate it. Why do I do my job? It's because it's meaningful. It makes me feel good that I can have an impact on someone, and it improves their lives. They feel better. So it's worth the pain of doing the paperwork.
Yeah, absolutely.
What gives your life meaning?
Happiness. No, I'm
Nice.
kidding. I really enjoy helping people figure stuff out, right? So like that's the goal for me. That's what I really enjoy doing. Like when we are able to help a nonprofit or a small business reach new people and help more people and create more sales and jobs and fundraising opportunities and then that begets more help, right? Like if you help a nonprofit raise more money, then they can use that money to then do more good, and then that gets there's a wonderful ripple effect to that. And I love problem solving to make things better. Like I think that I don't remember if it was this episode or another episode where we chatted about it was the first episode that we recorded today about truth, where we talked about wanting reality to match your fantasy,
Yeah.
and I think that
Sorry.
one of the cool things that I get to do is help people's reality match their fantasy a little bit, and that is worth the headaches.
Yeah, they get closer to their dreams.
Yeah.
So sometimes you don't realize all your dreams, but the journey towards that dream is well worth it.
Most of the time we think about things, I think, in abstracts, where we think about the ideal of something, right? And this is happiness versus meaning.
Yeah.
We think about the abstract of happiness. We think about the thing that we really want, and we don't necessarily, like, if you ever imagine a place in your head that you're going to go that you've never been to, right? Like a museum or like a city or something, you imagine it and you build it up in your head, and then you get there and you're like, there's a reality to this, right? Like
Yeah.
there's a garbage can over there, and like these things like don't match up in your head. That's happiness versus meaning, I think, too. Like, and trying to live in the meaning while making it while like having that attain a level of contentment and happiness, I think is the sweet spot. And it's what I try to do for myself all the time, try to ground yourself in meaning, so that when you get the fantasy, when you get the thing that's in your head, when you get all of that stuff, when you get to the happiness, it means more if you have meaning, which is a dumb thing to say, meaning, but
No.
it does. It matters more,
Yeah. And I know you work super hard and long hours, and my guess is you wouldn't do that because it can be very painful and tiring if you didn't find some sort of meaning in your job.
I mean, maybe, I don't know. I'm kidding. But that's yeah, thank you, I appreciate that.
Even if
And
it's just to like being productive. Like, who are we to define what meaning is? We have our own definition of what is meaningful and why it's meaningful.
I have a meeting after this recording session with someone who's a children's book author.
Yeah.
That wrote children's books about fun things that their son used to say and questions and whatever. And she's talking to me about, and I don't know if it'll go anywhere. I don't care if it'll go anywhere, like at the end of the day. But she's talking to me about starting a podcast in her treehouse to talk to other authors, and have fun story times and whatnot. And I'm like, that's the coolest thing, right?
Yeah.
To be able to go like, hey, I have this dream and I have this thing, and I'm like, here's 7 things that we could do to actually make it happen, and to make, you know what I mean? Like all of your people that are like, I make $100,000 a year and I have great benefits, but I want to be a yoga teacher. I'm one of the people that are able to go, let's look at how that would work for you.
Yeah.
Right. And that's insanely gratifying. So, I'm excited about that every day.
Yeah, and I always tell people, so if we use the yoga example, is you don't have to quit your job now. Use your job to fund your dream. And if one day it's more painful to keep your job than to leave it, you'll be ready to leave it. You'll be ready, even if it means temporarily you'll make less money, or you'll be creative enough to know how to make more money as a yoga teacher. Because we see a lot of successful yoga teachers that do make a lot of money. So
Yeah.
I always say, when you're ready for your dream, the answers come, the creativity, the resourcefulness then follows when you're ready for it. So it's worth pursuing something meaningful, because there are so many beautiful surprises along the way that you never would have thought would show up.
Is there anything else you'd like to add on meaning?
No, that was it.
That was a great episode. Thank you. If you are listening to this or watching this and you would like to chat more about pursuing meaning over happiness with Dr. Gina, you can reach out to her anywhere that you're listening or watching this. There are links in the description of this episode. Dr. Gina, thank you. I am grateful, and you are one of the things that give my job meaning. So I appreciate you.
Same here, by the way. Take care.
Thank you, guys. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
For more information or to book an appointment with Dr. Gina, go to drmandragrano.com or click the link in the description of this episode.